related to Mars. There were actually sort of signposts along the way. So let me describe what those were. But let me just preface by saying that we were not being trained for any off-planet function on Project Pegasus. We were involved in time travel experiences so that we would become the next generation, or actually the first generation of American chrononauts, moving between timelines, basically visiting the past and future on Earth. There was one component in our curriculum on Project Moondust, which was the speculation that we might be able to land rockets on the moon and bury the fuselage of the rockets, bury the cylinders that the rockets were made of, and create habitat for human beings visiting the moon. But we weren't informed that we would ultimately be going to Mars 10 years later, and there wasn't very much discussion of Mars or other planets, or even the moon for that matter. So as I've gone back and reconstructed how my childhood experiences in Project Pegasus related to my destiny 10 years later in my late teens visiting Mars, this is what I've retrieved from memory and basically the ancient past at this point. I mean, I just turned 50, and so these are things that happened when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. The first thing I think was significant was that in 1968, my father came home. This is when we were still living in Morris Plains, New Jersey. He came home from his job as a special projects engineer at the Ralph M. Parsons Company. Parsons was then still located on Wall Street in New York City. In fact, I remember once sitting in Ralph M. Parsons' office when they were on Wall Street. And Parsons, of course, being one of the two lieutenants to Stephen Bechtel during World War II, when they were building Liberty ships for the Navy, the other lieutenant of Bechtel being John McCone, who went on to a storied career with the Central Intelligence Agency. In fact, John McCone was the director of Central Intelligence at the time that President Kennedy was assassinated. So Parsons was steeped in classified defense work for the government. My dad comes home from Parsons, and he's inebriated. My dad was by no means an alcoholic, but he did drink. And on this particular evening, which was around the time that I first teleported to Santa Fe with him, that would be the 1967-68 time frame, so I'm 6, 7 years old. He comes home, and he gathered my 4 siblings and my mother in a circle in the living room, saying, "Listen, kids, I want to read to you this funny story about this guy who's describing our encounter with life forms on Mars for the first time." And my dad began to narrate several pages of material, becoming increasingly hysterical at the telling. And so my mother, asked him basically to stop. He had entertained us long enough. And right towards the end of his storytelling, I ran across the living room and I snatched out of my father's hands what he was reading. And I darted in the opposite direction. I basically darted up towards the stairs. Before he got to me, actually ran after me and grabbed me and said, "Andrew, you never do that. You never wrench something out of somebody's hands like that. It's very rude." But what I was able to see is that it was a manila folder, and stapled on the right side were 3 pages of material. And the top page said Central Intelligence Agency, and then below that it said Memorandum, and it said In-Ray Life on Mars, Andrew Basiago, 2008. And what we now understand that material was, that file that my dad was reading, was a Central Intelligence Agency file that had apparently been passed along to him by either somebody at Parsons or perhaps the people that he had gone drinking with in New York City before taking the subway and the train back to suburban New Jersey, where we live. And what I now understand it was, because I've written the paper upon which it was based, is somebody had gone through my single-spaced 41-page paper, The Discovery of Life on Mars, which would only be published in 2008, and they had extracted material to give my dad the impression that when I wrote about Mars in 2008, it would just be nonsense. In other words, all the fanciful terms I gave the animals that I found in NASA image PIA 10214, every effort I made in the paper to make the material accessible, for example, to school children, somebody had bowdlerized my paper and just sort of went through with a fine-tooth comb and just included those words and passages in this memorandum, and that's what my dad was reading from. giving him an entirely jaundiced view of what I would achieve in 2008 when I published my paper. So what that demonstrates is that by 1967-68, the U.S. time-space program was so advanced that it had already not only sourced my paper 40 years in the future, but it was in the possession of the CIA, so that by 1967-68, my dad could be presented with a summary of some of the most fanciful or even farcical passages of the paper. Okay, and I remember that event, and I gave the file back to him, but I do remember what was inside the paper. I even remember some of the life forms I describe in my paper that he was laughing at. Okay, so that was really my first and sort of rude introduction to the fact that I had some personal destiny that involved Mars and the discovery of life there. A year later, he was giving me a crew cut. You know, in those years, your dad would basically sit in a kitchen chair and take out one of those rudimentary electric razors and just basically cut your hair off. So he was giving me a crew cut. I'm now in, fourth grade. I've been doing time travel stuff in an organized way under Project Pegasus since the fall of the training began the fall of '69. So the time travel per se is well underway. In 1969 in the fall, I'm placed in the training program. So sometime either shortly before or after, I'm now officially in Project Pegasus, having had that initial teleportation experience as a 6-year-old back in 1967-68. My dad's giving me this haircut, and he stops, and he goes to his briefcase, and he pulls out a manila envelope with one of those red wax seals and a tie string, and he pulls out a single piece of paper, what we used to call a mimeograph before the advent of photocopies, but it did show a reproduction of a photograph on this single sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. And he said, take a look at this. And I said, what is it? And he said, a Martian. And I said, it is? And he goes, yeah, it's a Martian. It's a humanoid, like us, but he's on Mars. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. Guess who finds it, Andy? And I said, who? And he goes, you do. And I said, I do? And he goes, yeah. NASA sends some rovers up to the surface of Mars, and they take this photograph and send it back to Earth. And at a certain point in your life, you begin examining what's in NASA's photographs on Mars, and you find this. And I said, I do? And he goes, yeah. It's the first image ever to be published on Earth showing a humanoid being on another planet. And I'm astonished as a kid. I go, wow. And he goes, so there it is. Now you're getting a look at it before you even find it. So give it back to me, son. I've got to put it back away in the envelope. So again, this shows you how advanced the U.S. intelligence capability was relative to future events, because by 1969, literally the year that the public is being shown that we're placing Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin on the moon, my dad, who's a special projects engineer for Parsons, who was essentially the chief technical liaison between the Ralph M. Parsons Company and the CIA on the theory and practice of teleportation, and one of the principals on Project Pegasus, is handling intelligence data from events that are at least 40 years in the future, because in fact my paper and its contents could have been accessed via time travel sometime after it was published, which was December of 2008. I mean, that could have been from a probe that was conducted to 2020, because by December of 2008, my material has been in the public domain. So here he's showing me the picture that I included in the paper of what I call the humanoid being on Tsiolkovsky Ridge, which is a ridge about 100 feet wide that's beyond the home plate plateau from which that famous NASA image was taken. You know, that westward view of the West Valley of the Goose crater. So that was the second incident in my young life where, at this point, my dad's clearly not laughing at what my destiny is relative to Mars, because now he's comprehending the fact that indeed is the first image that's ever been published on Earth of a humanoid on another planet.
PIA 1014, ladies and gentlemen. Google that. See if you can find it. I'm going to ask Andrew where we can find that photo. Very interesting. ProjectPegasus.net, the website. We'll be right back right after this quick break.
You know the Constitution like the back of your hand. You've read books, listened to podcasts, attended lectures, surfed websites, and watched videos. You've made liberty your life's goal, but something seems to be missing. Stickers from LibertyStickers.com. Exercise your freedom of speech with the world's most dangerous bumper stickers. That's LibertyStickers.com. But wait. There's more. You can buy Liberty Stickers wholesale. Get them for 99 cents each when you put 100 or more in your shopping cart in any combination. Sell them or give them away. They're great for gun shows, flea markets, fairs, outreach, and more. Earn extra money, promote freedom, and spread the word. Need custom stickers, labels, or decals for your organization or business? Liberty Stickers makes them. Go to LibertyStickers.com to order or call 877-873-9626. LibertyStickers.com. The world's most dangerous stickers.
We all know that Berkey Water Purification Systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey Water Filtration Systems. The Berkey Light Systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light System today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
At HempUSA.org, we offer chemical-free products to people around the world, detoxifying, self-healing, while rebuilding the immune system. We urge our listeners to please consider our largest-selling product, Microplant Powder. Our Microplant Powder is rich in silica and probiotics to help rebuild the immune system and to create a healthy stomach flora. Microplant Powder is excellent for daily intake and is perfect to add to your storage shelter. We urge our listeners to please visit us at HempUSA.org. And remember, all of our products are chemical-free and healthy to eat. We constantly strive to give you the best service, highest quality, and rapid shipping anywhere. And we offer free shipping on orders over $95 in the U.S. Please visit us at HempUSA.org or call 908-691-2608. That's 908-691-2608. See what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you at HempUSA.org.
Hey America, it's your old friend W here. Do not tune into Truth Frequency Radio with Chris and Sherry every Saturday at 10 p.m. Central here on Oracle Broadcasting. Otherwise, the terrorists win.
We are back with Andrew D. Basiago, ProjectPegasus.net. Also, ProjectMars.com is the website. ProjectMars.net, excuse me. And ladies and gentlemen, if you go to the center left-hand side, you'll see something called the Annals of Mars. And you scroll down, you click on that, scroll down a little bit, you'll see the photo that contains evidence of life on Mars. And I'm looking at this and just absolutely fascinating what Andrew's been able to point out in these photos. Andrew, do you want to take us away where we dropped off?
Yeah, in fact, if you scroll a few more down, you'll see the paper, The Discovery of Life on Mars, 12/12/08. And that's my analysis of that photograph. I mean, the photograph is a huge valley. It would be like taking a car to the Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles and looking out over the San Fernando Valley. I mean, that picture is full of life because